You wake up already tired, not because you didn't sleep, but because your mind never really stopped. The alarm goes off, and even before your feet touch the floor, your thoughts are racing. Deadlines, messages, expectations. There's a strange heaviness in your chest. Not exhaustion exactly, but a quiet ache that whispers, you can't keep doing this. And yet, you do, because that's what life has become, an endless to-do list disguised as purpose. You move through the day like a machine, measuring your worth in output, efficiency, and results. Somewhere along the way, we stopped asking what it means to live well and started asking only how to do more. This is the paradox of modern life. The more we accomplish, the emptier we feel. Burnout isn't just about long hours or lack of rest. It's about losing yourself in the process of becoming productive. It's about living in a world that tells you your value depends on what you can produce, and never on who you are when you stop producing. We live in a culture that glorifies exhaustion. Busy has become a badge of honor, and stillness feels like guilt. We reward speed, multitasking, and the constant hustle, as if slowing down means falling behind. But behind the polished image of success, there's a quiet epidemic spreading through millions of lives, the feeling of being utterly depleted while appearing completely fine. We've built our lives around performance, around always having something to show, something to post, something to prove. But in doing so, we've created a cycle of permanent tension, where rest feels like laziness, and self-worth depends on how much you've done today. It's not that we don't want peace, it's that we no longer know how to live without pressure. Philosopher Erich Fromm once wrote about the difference between having and being. We've become obsessed with having more money, more recognition, more validation, but forgotten the quiet art of being present, being still, being enough. And in that endless pursuit of more, we've traded meaning for metrics and fulfillment for performance. The saddest part is that burnout doesn't announce itself. It creeps in quietly. First, you lose enthusiasm, then focus, then joy. Eventually, you find yourself staring at the same screen, doing the same work, wondering why it all feels so pointless. But you keep going, because stopping feels even scarier. Somewhere deep down, you know this isn't sustainable. You can feel it in your bones, that quiet fatigue that no amount of sleep can fix. You tell yourself it's just a busy season, that things will calm down soon. But the truth is, the world isn't slowing down, and neither are we. We've mistaken exhaustion for ambition. We've confused productivity with purpose. We've forgotten that being constantly on isn't strength, it's survival mode. And survival is not living. Burnout isn't a personal failure, it's a cultural one. It's the inevitable outcome of a world that asks for everything and gives nothing back. A world that measures success in profit, but ignores the cost to the soul. Maybe that's why, even when you achieve everything you were supposed to, something still feels missing, because what you've been chasing all along wasn't meaning, it was approval. And approval, no matter how much of it you get, never fills the emptiness left by a life disconnected from itself. Burnout is not a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that you've been strong for too long in a system that keeps taking and rarely gives. It's your body, your mind, your spirit, all whispering in unison, enough. Burnout doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, like a quiet erosion of the soul. At first, it feels like stress, manageable, familiar, almost expected. But over time, that stress turns into depletion, and that depletion becomes detachment. You start to lose touch with the very things that once made you feel alive. What's happening beneath the surface isn't just exhaustion, it's emotional starvation. You're giving out more energy, attention, and care than you're receiving back. You're constantly plugged into a world that demands your presence, but never nourishes it. Every notification, every expectation, every unspoken pressure adds another invisible weight. Psychologists describe burnout as a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by prolonged stress. But that definition misses something deeper, the existential side of burnout. Because it's not only about being tired of working, it's about being tired of why you're working. We were told that if we work hard enough, success will bring happiness. But somewhere along the way, that equation inverted. Now we chase success just to feel safe. We overcommit, overthink, and overperform because slowing down feels like losing control. We've tied our sense of worth so tightly to productivity that when we stop achieving, we start disappearing. The philosopher Alain de Botton once said, "There is no such thing as work-life balance. Everything worth fighting for unbalances your life." But what happens when the imbalance never ends? When life becomes one long performance, where you're applauded for surviving, not for living? The tragedy of burnout is that it often affects the people who care the most, the ones who try harder, who show up even when they're breaking inside, people who believe that being dependable means being available, that saying no means failing someone, that love and value are earned only through constant effort. You start to internalize the pressure. You tell yourself, if I can just get through this week, it'll be fine. But then the next week arrives, and it's the same. Soon, the future becomes a series of postponed breaks. Vacations you never take, hobbies you no longer touch, peace you keep promising yourself you'll earn one day. What no one tells you is that burnout often comes disguised as ambition. It wears the mask of motivation, of responsibility, of pride. You tell yourself you're being productive, when really, you're avoiding stillness. Because stillness means facing the truth that all this busyness isn't leading you anywhere that truly matters. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "No great thing is created suddenly." But in our age of constant urgency, we've forgotten that patience is not weakness, it's wisdom. We want everything now: success, validation, recognition. But real fulfillment moves at the speed of reflection. Without it, even our greatest achievements feel strangely hollow. Burnout thrives in the gap between who you are and what you perform. It feeds on the pressure to appear composed when you're unraveling inside. It grows each time you swallow your emotions to stay professional, each time you say, "I'm fine," when you're anything but. Over time, your identity begins to fracture. You start living as a version of yourself that exists only to meet demands. You can feel this fracture in the small moments, when you scroll mindlessly instead of resting, when you can't sit in silence without reaching for your phone, when your worth feels fragile, dependent on what others think. It's not that you've become lazy or unmotivated. You've just been drained of meaning, and meaning is what sustains us. Not sleep, not caffeine, not vacations. Meaning, the sense that what you do matters, that your efforts connect to something larger than survival. Without it, even rest feels restless. That's why burnout isn't solved by self-care routines or productivity hacks. It's not a problem of time management. It's a crisis of purpose. The solution isn't to do less or do more. It's to remember why you're doing anything at all. Maybe burnout isn't a sign that you've failed. Maybe it's your soul refusing to participate in a life that no longer aligns with its truth. It's a quiet rebellion against a world that values efficiency over essence, against a rhythm of living that leaves no room for being human. And that rebellion, painful as it feels, is sacred, because it means you're still capable of wanting something real, something slower, something that doesn't need to be posted or measured or monetized to matter. Healing from burnout doesn't begin with grand gestures or sudden changes. It begins quietly, in the small, almost invisible acts of reclaiming yourself. It starts when you pause long enough to notice just how tired you've become, when you stop pretending that exhaustion is normal, when you stop confusing endurance with strength. The first step toward healing isn't doing something, it's stopping. Stopping long enough to ask the question you've been avoiding. What is all this effort for? For many of us, that question is terrifying, because the answer might be nothing. We work, strive, and perform out of habit, fear, or expectation, not because it nourishes us, but because we've forgotten what else to do. But burnout is the body's way of reminding you that you can't live indefinitely on empty. It's not a punishment. It's a message, a signal that you've been running from your own needs for too long. Real healing begins when you stop chasing the life you think you should have and start listening to the one that's quietly asking for your attention. Maybe that life looks slower, simpler, less impressive on paper, but infinitely more peaceful in your heart. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once said, "Most men pursue pleasure with such breathless haste that they hurry past it." That's what burnout is, the result of hurrying past your own life. We move so fast that we no longer experience the moments we're working so hard to create. And when life becomes something to be managed rather than lived, we begin to wither. To heal, you have to learn how to rest. not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Rest isn't idleness, it's restoration. It's giving your mind permission to wander, your body permission to soften, and your heart permission to feel again. Sit in silence for a few minutes a day. Go for a walk without your phone. Let yourself feel bored. These small acts are not trivial. They are acts of resistance against a world that profits from your distraction. And then comes honesty, the kind that requires courage. You have to face the parts of your life that are misaligned, the job that drains you, the relationship that no longer fits, the constant performance of pretending to be okay. Healing doesn't happen by adding more. It happens by subtracting what's breaking you. You may have to disappoint people. You may have to let go of roles that once defined you. But freedom often begins at the point of loss. The moment you stop trying to be everything for everyone is the moment you begin returning to yourself. When you start to rest, something unexpected happens. Clarity returns. You start noticing the small joys that were buried beneath your busyness, the sound of rain against the window, the warmth of morning sunlight, the feeling of breathing without rushing to the next thing. These moments are where life quietly reintroduces itself to you. Healing from burnout isn't about becoming less ambitious. It's about remembering why you wanted to create, to build, to strive in the first place. It's about returning to the source of your curiosity and passion before they were turned into performance metrics. Ask yourself, what used to make you feel alive before you started measuring everything? What did you do when no one was watching, when there were no likes, no achievements, no audience? Go back there, because that version of you still exists, waiting to be found beneath all the noise. And once you begin to reconnect with yourself, something shifts. You stop seeing rest as laziness and start seeing it as intelligence. You stop chasing validation and start choosing alignment. You stop living for approval and start living for peace. The truth is, we can't eliminate stress or avoid struggle, but we can choose not to lose ourselves to them. We can choose to move through the world with gentleness instead of urgency, to build lives that make room for breath, reflection, and meaning. Because healing isn't a return to who you were before burnout. It's an evolution into someone wiser, someone who knows that worth is not earned by exhaustion, someone who understands that doing less doesn't mean caring less, it means caring better. And in that space, life starts to feel whole again. You begin to wake up without dread. You find joy in ordinary things. You remember that you are not just a producer of outcomes, but a participant in existence. You realize that being alive, truly alive, has nothing to do with being busy and everything to do with being present. So, if you're feeling burnt out, don't rush to fix it. Sit with it. Listen to what it's trying to tell you. Because burnout, when understood, isn't just the end of your energy. It's the beginning of your awakening. The moment you stop fighting your exhaustion and start honoring it, you'll see what it was trying to reveal all along, that your life doesn't need to be louder or faster or fuller. It just needs to be yours.